This is Dana Schrager, and I'm co-teaching a cooking class, The Jewish Cooking of Southern Italy. We'll be at the Awaiting Table Cooking School with Silvestro Silvestori in Lecce, Italy. Each day we'll cook Jewish dishes from a different southern Italian region, including Rome and Lazio, Puglia, Sicily, Calabria, and Naples and Campania. During our time together, we'll shop for ingredients like locals, learn about olive oil and wine, spend time by the sea, and field trip to Jewish museums and nearby ancient towns. So come walk in the footsteps of Jews who have lived in southern Italy in the past and learn about the current Jewish communities. I'd love for you to join us.
For the last 13 years, newspapers, magazines, and travel documentaries have been predicting that Puglia will be the new Tuscany.
Il problema è il gargano.
They'd be right if only this is how you treated the rest of Italy. Part of the problem inherent in the question is that it suggests that the future will function exactly as it has in the past, that tourism is static. It isn't. And that implies that a population and location with tens of thousands of years of history can suddenly go out of fashion. And they can't. To call La Puglia, or any other region.
But Italians and Jews, very similar. You know, people say same corporation, different division. All right? We get along. There's an obvious, thing with the religion. I went to my first Passover dinner. That's what she's like, well, my mother's going to have Pass. Okay, we'll go to the dinner. 7:30, we sit down at her mother's house. I'm starving, right? Starving. They start passing out pamphlets, like reading material. I'm like, what's going on? What are we doing here? What's with the... She's like, no, we read for 2 hours. 2 hours? I said, listen, I'm Italian. As soon as I sit at a table, I gotta have bread within 15 seconds of sitting down, all right? I need something to do with my right hand. I need there's some oil coming out? We got oil? I need oil, now. Hungry. And the food they start bringing out, oh God, terrible, terrible food. Jews have no idea what the hell they're doing in the kitchen. These people have no cuisine. Celery, crackers, jam. I'm like, what is it? We're losing people. People are leaving. We need food. After breakfast, they fall apart, the Jews. After a bagel, cream cheese, lox, where are they going? They got nothing. They have nothing. Has anybody ever said to you, we went to this Jewish restaurant last night? The gefilte, amazing. I respect the Jews, but let's just have the Italians cater the Passover meal, all right? Come on. I could read for a couple of hours with some meatballs on the table.
Everyone, this is Jeffrey Geisner from the Jewish Culture and Holocaust Remembrance 10-7 Communities. I am thrilled to invite you to our first film book author collaboration with my really good friend and colleague Dana Schrager from Los Angeles. And we'll be talking about Dana's terrific food site, Jewish Cooking, her ability to understand Italian Jewish research. And so, Dana, I want to ask you to start by saying, I know we've done psychological intergenerational trauma programming together for our communities, and we've done several of them throughout since 2020, the pandemic. But I heard recently that you've decided to retire from psychology, give up your license and practice. So let's start there and kind of go through that tribulations of how you decided that and how you've transitioned your life to being a blogger, foodie, and really the founder of the Jewish cooking site, which has thousands, tens of thousands of members on Facebook.
Hi, Jeffrey. Thank you so much for having me. It's so exciting to be here and to talk with you and interact with you and be a part of the wonderful community that you've developed. We had some amazing experiences on Zoom with the community, particularly during the pandemic. And I'm so excited that you're continuing more series of Zooms and interviews. And I'm honored to be one of your interviewees. So let me tell you and tell the community who knows me what I'm up to. My first profession has been a psychologist. And as Jeffrey has said, I've been talking about intergenerational trauma with the group. But my, I guess, behind the scenes passion and now second career is Jewish cooking. And I come from a long line of cooks, my mom, my grandma, aunts, who are very famous for Jewish recipes, for their cooking, for their holiday meals, for their recipes. And way back when I was young, I always said one day I would like to write a cookbook and preserve these recipes. And as it's evolved, instead of a cookbook, I've been putting recipes online one at a time on a blog. It's called Dana's Table, danastable.com. And the main recipes that I put online are Jewish recipes, really honoring my heritage as well as other Jewish cuisines from other regions of the world. And those recipes bring back memories, maybe bring back comfort. It's like the food of our childhood. It's the food of our family gatherings on our holidays. And so that's very exciting to me. And as Jeffrey said, I have a community myself on Facebook, two, in fact, one called Jewish Cooking and one called Jewish Holiday Cooking. These are communities of people on Facebook who like to talk about Jewish cooking. So if you do, please join me. Would love to have you. So Jeffrey, let's see.
I'll ask you one other question. I know that one of your groups was founded by Joan Nathan, and who's obviously a very well-known author of Jewish cooking. How did you happen to get together with Joan? And now I know you're actually running for the Joan site, which she founded, but for yourself.
Correct. Okay, so I've always been a fan of Joan Nathan's cookbooks. I learned a lot of recipes when I was first married out of her cookbook. And I had the opportunity to meet her in Los Angeles, where I live, at a conference. And as we started talking, one thing led to another, and we decided to do a cooking class at my house, where she came and taught a group of us all kinds of recipes for Rosh Hashanah. And from that experience and interaction, we've become friends. We hang out, we go to food events. She really liked what I was doing in my Jewish holiday cooking group and all the interaction I was getting, all that help and assistance and attention I was giving to the members. So her group was sitting there, and she really wasn't in it very often. And so she wanted the group and the members to get more attention and get better moderation of the group, because of course sometimes there's spammers. So she gave the group to me. So since she gave me the group, I've doubled the membership and I run both groups.
And when was that?
I started my group in 2020. She probably gave me her group, I would say, in 2021.
Good. So now you're moving to doing Jewish cooking. You're blogging on a daily basis. You're posting to your website recipes. But I also know that you've decided to take another kind of Uber move, and you're actually deciding to become a foodie and travel the world. And your first trip is going to be to Italy, and you're taking people from all over the world with you to learn about the Italian experience. So let's talk a little bit about how all that kind of got together, how that you're like an food entrepreneur. So let's kind of put this in the right perspective and allow the audience to understand what you're up to and how you're entrepreneuring in the food world.
Okay, so what I love about this, and maybe this will help other people as well, is I feel like my food career is my 2.0. So it's very exciting to be midlife and make a shift and turn a passion into something that's more full time. It's just really fun and exciting to focus time and attention on a new project. So I know, Jeffrey, you have a retirement project, which is running this group and these videos that we're doing. And so I just encourage people, if you have something else you love, why not give it a shot? I've been doing this as a passion in the background for the past 13 years, so it's not brand new, but it's been growing. And so now I'm running with it, and I have my psychology practice on hold. So I'm semi-retired, I guess you could say, or probably retired, although I still stay active in the community and do advocacy work, still have my sort of finger on the pulse, and I can reinitiate anytime I want, but for now, that's on pause, and I'm really enjoying being in the food world. So I guess what I'll say is what I like about being in the food world is this isn't only about food, which is wonderful. Food connects people. We enjoy food. I think it's a Julia Child quote, food people are the best people. I'm meeting so many new people and making new friends. That part's super fun. But this is really more than that. This is about helping other people celebrate Jewish holidays, giving people the tools to bring family members and friends around the table. So it's helping my recipes are the tools that help people to gather people around the table, make their own connections, make their own memories. And a lot of Judaism happens in the home. Most of the holidays are celebrated in the home. So this is giving people the tools to connect with their Judaism and connect people with their Judaism around the table. So there's a lot of deeper meaning here. Now, what does this all have to do with Italy? This is the picture that we've been looking at for the past several minutes. This is me cooking in Italy. This is me at a cooking school called the Awaiting Table in Lecce, Italy, in the Puglia region. And that's homemade pasta. It's so fun to learn how to make homemade pasta. It's kind of like playing with Play-Doh almost. If you're like artistic or like to do things with your hands, you can learn how to make many shapes over the week at the cooking school, and a homemade sauce. So I went to this cooking school pre-pandemic, and what I thought was going to be an incredible food and cooking experience, which it was, turned out to be so much more. It opened my eyes to the traces of Jews who have lived in this area.
And where is the exact
historically? This is in the schools in specific is in Puglia. Puglia is in southern Italy. If you picture the peninsula of Italy as a boot, Puglia is in the heel of the boot. So it's pretty much as far south as you can go in Italy, and on the right hand side on the Adriatic Sea. Although the way it dips down, it's almost like a spur of the boot. There's also an Ionian coast. So the great thing about Puglia is there's so much coastline. You're probably never more than an hour from the coast, no matter where you are in the region. And when the winds are not favorable on one side of the peninsula, you go to the other side and the weather's great. So it's also got really good climate for growing fruits and vegetables. There's a lot of olive oil production there, wine production there. So there's a very rich food culture down there. It's not as well known area as some other areas, say like Rome or Florence, but it's very well known from within Italy. It's sort of like, I'm letting you in on a secret. This is the area where the Italians travel in the summertime. So try not to go in August, because that's when it's the most crowded, but it would never be as crowded as like somewhere like Rome. And the trip I'm doing is starting on August 31st in the evening. We're there the first week of September. So we're right at the beginning of the shoulder season, which is a really nice time to go because the weather's still good, but it's not as crowded.
How's the winter?
So,
how's the winters?
you can still go in winter, and I'm from California, so I probably say I don't like the winters there. But if you're from anywhere else in the world, you'd be like, the weather's great. It doesn't usually snow, so it's really not that cold there. The bigger cities have vibrant life all year long. Lecce, where the cooking school is a university town. That place is hopping all year long. It's so like vibrant and full of life. You feel the energy when you're there. That's what I love so much about it. People walk around at night before their dinner. So it feels very alive to be there. It's not like Los Angeles where we take cars and sequester in our houses and don't interact with people. Like you walk around there and you see people Like, the crazy thing is, the first morning I was walking around there, I was with the cooking school teacher, and I knew of one other person in the town, a friend of a friend. I knew his name was Francisco. I had never met him. And we're walking around and we run into him. So, like the first minute I was there, I ran into him. So that was like, that's small town living. I live in Los Angeles. It's not a small town like that. So anyway, as I got to know the history of Italy through being there, that's the beauty of travel, is that it brings the stories to life. You're not just hearing about things or looking at photos in the book. You're like walking in the footsteps of the people who came before you. So I learned that Jews lived there and thrived there and lived in relative peace for 1,500 years, from around 70 CE or AD, if you do your dates that way, from the fall of the Second Temple in Jerusalem to 1541. For 1,500 years, Jews were there. Okay, at the end of the 1400s, the region next to Puglia was 40% Jewish. 40% Jewish. I mean, I don't think Los Angeles or New York are 40% Jewish, I mean, that's a really high percentage.
You know how many Jews in raw numbers that is?
I was wondering that. I have to ask Rabbi Aiello. I'll show you her photo because she will know. She's my source. So let's go to, okay, let me finish my thought and I'm going to go to the next photo. So the Jews lived here for so long. How come I never knew about this? Like, you don't hear about this. So that's a lot of years. And how come I'm there now, 500 years later, and I have to hunt for little signs and traces? Like, it's pretty close to erased. So, but there's still excavations, there's still things to see. Okay, but so it just really makes you think, or you wonder sort of the fragility of things. Or, the question is, and maybe the question some, maybe a lot of American Jews are asking is how do you know when things go south? Okay, Jeffrey, you and I have lived in America in a very good time for Jews. And we're wondering what's happening. There's so much rise in anti-Semitism. Like, what's happening? You want to read the tea leaves. You want to read the signs. So the best way to do that is to know history, not just look myopically at today in Rome. What does this have to do with today? First, let me tell you what you're looking at. These are Romans around the time of 70 CE. These are the Romans who conquered Jerusalem and caused the fall of the Second Temple, the destruction of the Second Temple. Here they are coming back to Rome with the spoils, including the menorah, including slaves, aka hostages, and pieces of the Roman temple in Rome. So we all know today, in 2023, Hamas GoPro'd their atrocities. That's the record of what happened. If you want to know what happened in 70 AD, 2,000 years ago, this is the Arch of Titus in Rome, close to the Roman Forum, right in the center of Rome. This is a depiction carved in stone of the spoils of war and their attack and the aftermath. 2,000 years ago, and we have a record of what happened. They left a record.
So
well,
let
the
me,
digital.
so let me ask
Go
you,
ahead.
right in the center of that photo, it looks like there's almost a camera. What is that?
It does.
Do you know
No, I actually do not know, but I do know that what's depicted is they brought back souvenirs, like pieces of the actual temple, like chunks of stone. So, as well as people, as they brought them back as slaves. So, some of the very first slaves in Italy, some of the very first Jews in Italy came as slaves in 78 AD. So, okay. So let's, now we got the 2000, and I think it was in the 1970s or 80s, they were excavating to build a freeway, and they came upon the ruins of a temple. And this temple was Ashkenazi. So I think that's very interesting because I don't usually think of Italian Jews as being Ashkenazi, but these people in Calabria were Ashkenazi. So this is a mosaic. This is all original. So also, if you want, I was so happy to see the site and to see the site with a good guide who could explain what was happening. And that's a replica of a menorah that they found. But this is what it looks like today. But that's the close-up of the mosaic. It's ruins. And see that? That's the freeway they built over. So they were trying to build the freeway, and they didn't build it on the ruins. They had to elevate it and build the freeway over. So it looks like ruins. I have another picture of ruins. So there's not like a lot to see, but the guide will tell you, this is this room, this is that room, this is what was found in each room. They have some of the artifacts in the museum of what was found. And this area is on the coast. There's so much coastline in Calabria too. It's breathtaking. Oh, sorry. It's breathtaking. That's about an hour away in Tropea. But I mean, look at the color of that water. I mean, it's so breathtakingly beautiful there. So what happened to these Ashkenazi Jews who were there 2,000 years ago? They were too close to the coast. Too many invaders. So they had to move and go further inland and more in the hills. The center of Calabria is more hilly than the coast. So they moved. They abandoned that site. So I was very. Go ahead.
Picture. There's a bunch of color. What looks like color stones on
umbrellas.
They're umbrellas. So people are actually bathing. This
was June, yeah, and this is from a window of a hotel, and that's umbrellas.
Nice.
Anyway, there's photographers like Gray Malin who have really cool shots of these like umbrellas on the beach. I don't know if he was in Calabria or not, but I tried my hand at Gray Malin style photography, and it's not as easy as Gray Malin makes it look. But okay, so Calabria. So now that we're on the subject of Calabria, maybe I will go to those photos if I can find them. Here it is. Yes. Okay. This on the left is Rabbi Aiello. That is her husband, Enrico, and that is me and my husband, and that's Enrico's Nutella birthday cake. And that's been his birthday cake. First of all, they are both Italian Jews. Okay, both Rabbi Aiello and Enrico. both Italian Jews. That's his birthday cake. It's a Nutella cake. I have the recipe, and that's the cake his mom made him as a boy and that he has been making for himself since. So that's a very authentic Jewish Italian recipe, which we enjoyed together. Rabbi, go ahead.
He is conservative, Orthodox, Reform.
Reform. She is the first Reform and the first female rabbi in Italy. Most of Italian Jews in Italy belong to an Orthodox synagogue, and it's got a parent organization, an Orthodox parent organization that oversees all of those Orthodox synagogues. So they're not so happy she's there, but she is amazing. So let me tell you what she's doing, because this really applies to a certain group of people around the world. She was born in Florida. Her grandparents and her father were born in Calabria. Enrique's born in Calabria as well. So when her grandma would come to visit her, and it would be Friday night Shabbat, her grandma would go to the basement of the house to light candles. And she would say, "Grandma, what are you doing?" She's like, "Go light the candles in the basement." Okay, did you hear me? I said I have to light the candles in the basement. She'd whisper and like sort of crouch and hide and refuse to light the candles anywhere but the basement. And she'd say, "But Grandma, we're in America. You can light the candles anywhere you want. You can light them in the living room. You can light them anywhere." And she's like, "No, I have to light them in the basement." So she was a hidden secret. She was practicing her Judaism in secret, in hiding. So what happened is, going back to the late 1400s, early 1500s, Ashkenazi Jews were in this region. Also, this area in Italy that I'm talking about, Calabria, Sicily, southern Italy, Sicily, Calabria, Puglia, and up to Campania, where Naples is, up to Rome. This is a trade route. And also there's lots of ports on the Adriatic coast, which I can show you. I have pictures of that, where trade is coming through. So a lot of Jewish people were involved in trade and involved in banking. Many of these regions or countries had restrictions on what jobs the Jews could have. So those were some of the jobs that were allowed. And so the Jews traveled through this region, and some of it liked it and settled there, or some settled there because that's where they had business with trade and banking. So they're traveling through and settling the region. So more come as they go through these trade routes, more come and stay. But in 1492, there was the Spanish Inquisition, where Ferdinand and Isabella expelled all Jews from Spain. I don't know how many there were, but there were a lot. And a lot came nearby to Sicily and Calabria. That's how Calabria really grew its Jewish population, because all the Sephardic Jews of Spanish origin, were coming and staying in Calabria. So let me show you where the synagogue is. This building is at a sort of lower or normal elevation in Calabria, and this was the synagogue. This is now a church, and very difficult to get in to see the inside, like kind of near impossible. So we were on the outside, and we wandered up and down and through the neighborhood and through the gate into the neighborhood. That was the former Jewish area of the region. But soon, the Spanish, this area in southern Italy was a Spanish territory. And the Spanish, after they kicked the Jews out of the country, they decided they would kick the Jews out of their territories as well. So the Jews had to, where did they go? Some of them went to the top of the mountain. And where did I go? To the top of the mountain, because that's where Rabbi Aiello lives. So I don't know if I have any more. Oh, yes, this is in Rabbi Aiello's synagogue section of the building her house is in. This is her completely fabulous and wonderful menorah collection from all around the world. It's a really cool collection, really some very fabulous pieces in there. Anyway, so the Jews had to either convert, leave, be killed, or practice in hiding. So a certain number of Jews went up to the top of the mountain and practiced sort of in hiding in secret. And so that's where this is Sarah Stretta up at the top of the mountain. It's a beautiful drive through trees, which I don't have a photo handy of it. But okay, so eventually the Jews got routed out. I guess there must have been like a bounty if you turn people in or something like that to the Spanish government. So
When is this? What period of time are we talking about?
late 1500s.
Okay.
Or in the 1500s, sorry. So this is what happened. That most of the Jews at that point decided to just move more up north. There's a lot more still existing synagogues and stuff further north in Italy. People dispersed, but some people stayed in Sarah Stretta, like Rabbi Aiello and her husband's family. They stayed. They practiced in secret. They lit the Shabbat candles in the basement. So Rabbi Aiello's in the area, and there's many, many, many people there. And I've met some people who, in their heart, they just know, they just have a feeling like they don't feel fully actualized. They don't feel fully themselves. They may have grown up Catholic or with no religion, but somehow in their heart, they have this feeling that they're Jewish. So many interesting things on the website. I think the most interesting thing is she has a last name database. It's a database of last names that indicate that your ancestors were probably Jewish. So they talk about this in other cultures. You know, you can hear about this, people who were Spanish, people who are in South America. Sometimes they're called Conversano Jews, Marrano Jews. There's all different names for hidden Jews. So they still do little practices. But they don't know is like, I just thought that was an idiosyncrasy of my family, that we buried our dead right away. We, wrapped them in a plain cloth. And all these little traditions that we have, somehow there were remnants of Shabbat and burial practices and holidays that the family kept up as an idiosyncrasy of the family. But once you hear them describe what they do, these are all Jewish practices. So these are the hints that their ancestors were Jewish. And in some families, like when grandma's on the deathbed, grandma whispers, "Go to my top desk drawer in the back." And then in the back are Jewish artifacts, like, a Kiddush cup, a mezuzah, a menorah, whatever, little things that are used for practicing Judaism. So some people know, some people have heard the whispers. So Rabbi Aiello, as well as some other communities, are welcoming these people to return. And so she's got a whole community of people that follow her, some in this little village and some online. She does bar and bat mitzvahs, weddings, but some people don't feel like their true selves or their whole selves until they reconnect and they return. So I think what she's doing is really beautiful. And it takes a special person to do what she's doing.
This is Calabria, in the toe of southern Italy, across from Sicily. Everyone here is Italian. Everyone here likes good food, and most everyone here is Catholic. But there's much more to uncover about their roots.
My family, the last name, the surname Aiello, goes all the way back to Judea and biblical times. Elul means actually in Hebrew to God. And from there, the family went to Babylonia during the first diaspora, and after that to Spain, to Portugal, to Gibraltar, to Morocco, Sardinia, Sicilia, Sicily, and also to the toe of the boot in Reggio Calabria, and then finally running from persecution, the persecution of the Inquisition in the 1500s to Nicastro, now is Lamezia Terme, Scigliano, and now Serra Stretta.
500 years ago, according to scholars and locals alike, there were more than 50,000 Jews living across this region.
La Giudecca non è altro che un luogo che gli ebrei sceglievano, cioè non erano costretti loro ad andare lì per essere rinchiusi, loro sceglievano questo luogo, tipo questo da noi che è chiamato Timpone. Timpone deriva da timpa, timpa da noi significa roccia, è un piccolo quartiere costruito sulla roccia, le case sono senza fondamenta ed è circondato da due torrenti che la chiudono e dove questi due torrenti sotto si incrociano c'è un ponte che consentiva di attraversare il fiume e andare in questo quartiere.
And that's the way things remained. A distant historic memory. A once was Jewish section in each town. Some families who might admit to having once been Jewish hundreds of years ago. Until something changed. When an Italian-American woman who grew up in Pittsburgh, but whose family had emigrated to the USA from Calabria in the 1920s, discovers her family's secret Jewish roots. And eventually becomes a rabbi with a mission.
My father was a liberator of the Buchenwald concentration camp. Dopo lui ha visto dentro il campo questi ragazzi quasi morti. Lui ha detto a me, tu devi fare qualcosa per ebrei. The priests around me here, they trust me because I'm not going to say, leave the Catholic Church, you're really Jewish. I say, you must know your history.
Allora, tu sai che in tempo fa, molti anni fa, è stato il posto dei ebrei. Sì, tu conosci questa? Sì, che cosa tu ricordi? Che hanno detto?
Hanno detto perché c'era una cosa che c'era l'olio.
Ah, l'olio. Sì.
Hanno fatto questa cosa che c'è, come si chiama? L'arco.
Sì, anche i cognomi, cittadini, taverne,
cittadini
è un nome ebraico. Tu conosci questo? Voi conoscete? Sì.
I would say to people, do you think you're Jewish? And they would say, no. Then I realized I was asking the wrong question. What I needed to be asking was, what did your family do when a baby was born? What did your family do when a boy or girl reached 12 or 13 years old? What did your family do for a wedding? What did your family do for mourning when people died? People would say to me, when the baby's born, you must put a red string in the crib. Kabbalah. They would say, when you marry, before you go to church, you have to put the bride and groom sotto la coperta. You have to put them under they would crochet, knit a beautiful covering for the bed, but before they put it on the bed, they put the bride and groom underneath and they made a blessing. When the girl reaches 12 years old, you make a dinner like Friday night with 2 candles on the table. And when someone dies, like Zio Mario here in town, we found in the house, I own the house over here a fianco. We went inside and we find 25, 30 low chairs. You saw some of them in there. I said, Zio Mario, this family must have had a lot of children. He said, no, per luto, for mourning. And when we're in mourning, they must sit on low chairs. So you see how the traditions, it was too dangerous to say we are Jewish, but you maintain these practices by saying these are our family traditions.
And now we take our Kiddush cup, everyone. We take our cup to make the blessing. We sanctify Shabbat and we sanctify this very beautiful and special day. Okay, Jeffrey?
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei pri hagafen.
Amen.
Through her website, Rabbi Barbara reached out from this little-known Calabrian village to touch the hearts and minds of the Calabrian Italian diaspora all over the world.
My daughter found Rabbi Barbara's website and she confirmed everything that I thought we were so different, why we were different, because even simple things like the Italian language. I studied Italian at university, and there's a word in our dialect that my grandmother used to say after we had dinner. She'd say, "Ricogliamo I hamazzi," which to me, I used to say, I looked it up and it's not Italian. I used to think, where is this word coming from? And it's only been since I've become more interested in my roots that I found out that it's a Jewish word. And I thought maybe it was just every Calabrese knew the word. And because I have a school, a lot of my students are Calabrese. I used to ask, do you know the word hamaz? And some would say yes. And then I'd ask their surname, and it was a Jewish surname. And others would say, no, we don't say that, we say moliki. So it was interesting. It's interesting piecing things together.
I always felt like there was something there. I always felt like I was searching for something and didn't know what it was. And when I started going to the synagogue in Florida and meeting with Rabbi Barbara, I felt like I had come home.
She welcomes American interfaith families of Italian, Calabrian, and Jewish heritage for bar mitzvahs and weddings.
It's an interesting time because I'm doing a bar mitzvah for my son, but I didn't actually have a bar mitzvah. I think I'm particularly excited about this as I felt important for me to make sure that my children were educated to be Jewish.
V'adaber Adonai el Moshe ve'el Aharon lemor.
My grandparents came to the United States and I was raised Catholic.
My daughter's wedding was a mixed. There was a rabbi and also a Catholic priest. I have no objections to it.
Le dorvador, le dorvador, le dorvador nagi gadlecha, le dorvador, le dorvador. I'm going to have you hold it and actually give it to Jeffrey. Le dorvador nagi.
I am happy to do the bar mitzvah here in Calabria because I am not really the party kind of person, and if I did it in the United States, I would have to kind of like throw a party. So I'd rather do it here, and since I'm half Italian, I wanted to do it here.
We offer an alternative to the strict Orthodox practice. We offer a way to live in your family, to live a Jewish life, and to be part of the community.
But not everyone was happy that a Jewish presence, brought by a female rabbi, the first ever in Italy, was making itself felt in this totally Catholic region.
Someone wrote on the wall in front of this apartment building, "Listen, Jew girl." They didn't say Jew old lady, which was nice, I thought. They said Jew girl, since I'm 62 years old. And last time we burned you in the ovens, this time we'll cut you to pieces.
It wasn't only local opposition that made her life difficult, but also from within the Jewish community, there were different voices.
La figura della donna rabbino è una figura molto discussa. La differenza fondamentale tra l'approccio ortodosso e quello riformato su questo punto è la partecipazione all'interno della sinagoga.
L'idea che la donna deve copiare l'uomo significa che la donna non è contenta con questa che c'ha lei.
A woman in my position as a rabbi telling Jews they can be Jewish with a woman rabbi was a really bad thing. A male rabbi as a reformer might have had a coffee together, but not me, because to have a discussion with me, an Orthodox rabbi, it would mean acknowledging acknowledging me as their colleague. Impossible.
Noi possiamo stare a un tavolo tutti in modo pacifico e non arrivare a odiare ognuno. Possiamo anche discutere dopo la cena o durante la cena diverse opinioni e può essere anche opinioni diverse, contraddittorie, però dobbiamo rimanere sempre in modo molto pacifico perché perché c'è scritto Vechol derachea shalom, tutte le vie della Torah devono portare alla fine alla pace.
I am the first in my family born in America. My parents came to the United States from here, from Italy. They found other refugee families, and together they made a little synagogue, very traditional, just like the ones they remembered in Europe. The men led the services while the women sat upstairs in the balcony and talked amongst themselves. That's how I grew up, like this, looking down on the action below. So when I was about 8 years old and my aunt asked me, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" I said, "Rabbi, that's what I want to be." I remember it well. My aunt and the others in the family, they were stunned. Then Auntie said to me, "Now tell me la verità, carissima. What do you really want to be?" My family was so surprised because back in the day there were no women rabbis, not even one. Yet it didn't seem to matter how many people laughed or shook their heads. The dream never died. The first woman rabbi in the modern day was my colleague, Sally Priesand, who was ordained in the United States in 1976. But it wasn't until 1999 that it happened for me. I was 51 years old, but I finally became a rabbi.
Obviously, you know, we're a Holocaust community. Many of our community are generational survivors. Some are still here with survivors. How did this all play out during, you know, the late 1920s, the 1930s, Mussolini's kind of connection and link to Hitler? Perhaps, I know that you've done a ton of research in this area, so maybe you can educate us with all of your research and share with us.
The most interesting I've come across to help people understand what happened to the Jews in Italy during the time of Mussolini and Hitler is to watch a podcast called Pack One Bag. Pack One Bag. Phenomenal 10-episode podcast that I recently listened to about the Modigliani family, told from the point of view of the great-grandson, who's an American, who's a documentary maker, and he produced this podcast. He interviewed his father, he knew his grandfather, and then the story starts with his great-grandfather. So the whole point of his podcast, which relates to today, is when you start to see fascism in your country, how do you know when it's time to leave? And he repeats this question many times over through the podcast. These are thoughts that run through my head for myself today. And then the next part of his question, and what happens to those who can't leave or don't leave? And he answers those questions, at least in terms of his family, during fascism and Nazism in Italy in the last century. So, you know, I don't want to spoil the details for a very well done podcast, but again, we really need to pay attention to the signs that other people had in other points in history, and then the signs get louder and louder and louder until you end up here. So we are looking at plaques in Naples, Italy. I also have these plaques in Rome. That's Rome, but not the plaques. Okay. This is a lovely family that runs a very good restaurant in Rome in the Jewish Quarter. The woman in the middle, her name is Yael. Spent marvelous time with her. She's a chef. She gave me recipes. I have one on my website. But she took me, in addition to the fabulous food experience we had, she took me here. This is her great grandma on the left. This building. So, sorry. Yes, great grandmother. So, what are these plaques? You can see these plaques throughout Italy, and you can see these in other countries in Europe. These are brass plaques in the ground in front of homes where people were taken from their homes during the Holocaust and deported to concentration camps. You can see right here, you don't really need to understand Italian to see that it's the name of the person, when she was born, when she was taken, and she was deported to Auschwitz and it looks like assassinate, and she was killed. So the story is so moving to hear it from the great granddaughter. And she walked me over, like just 2 blocks from where the family restaurant is. She said her grandpa was 5 years old and he was home with his mother when the Nazis came. And he escaped. Unfortunately, his mother and the neighbor did not, but he escaped by going from rooftop to rooftop to rooftop to get to where his father was. And he and his father were able to escape. So I'm standing there in the Jewish quarter and looking at the buildings and trying to figure out what this 5-year-old kid did. I mean, it's just a really like moving story that when you meet the families who are affected by these things, it becomes very real. So there's also lots of stories in Italy that I heard in the podcast and that I heard from the tour guide in Naples, that there were helpers. There were helpers that saved many, 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 many people. And I can go back to the Naples slide maybe, but this is in Naples. The tour guide's mother saved many, he's an older man, he saved many people because she spoke multiple languages, and she was put in charge of monitoring conversation and translating. And so she would tell the people who needed to hide, like, it's time to go hide, like in the fields or whatever, because she understood, like when the Nazis were coming, because she was forced to translate for them. But she was like double agent or whatever. Like, you know, they couldn't really force her cooperation. So it's a really fascinating story. And he said some people are talking about making a movie about what his mother did, and I hope they do, because it's a really very moving story. Okay, this is the synagogue in Naples, where I heard the story of the tour guide's mother being able to hide and rescue people. So, Jews. So the thing about being Jewish, which I think will interest the listeners, is there's a summer camp song that I know, and maybe some others know, that proved to be so true when I was on this journey of uncovering recipes and history simultaneously. So the song is, and I sing off key, so hopefully I'm not going to embarrass myself too much, but the song is, wherever you go, there's always someone Jewish. I don't know, the song goes on. But that song played in my head the entire month I was researching in Italy, because Jewish people kept connecting me to other Jewish people. And everybody was so helpful and so welcoming and, you know, so eager to help, especially these women. This is the meeting room adjacent to the synagogue that I just showed you in Naples. And I met with these women. So these women gathered their favorite Rosh Hashanah recipes and put them in booklets for me. And the lady in purple is actually American and speaks perfect English and Italian. So she was my translator and was such a generous conduit. But she gathered these older women who came with their favorite recipes, and she helped us facilitate a conversation. The woman in the more black flower dress, she spoke some English. She's got like a high up office in the WIZO, the Women's Jewish Organization, but she helped translate for everybody. And the women were thrilled that somebody was interested in them and their community, wanted to learn about their community. And they were so happy someone was interested in their cooking and their recipes. They were super happy to share. So it was okay. Yeah. So this is Angela. She's also in Naples. You could see I'm holding my gift. And she's a musician, but she's also a fabulous cook, and she shared recipes. But this is also part of that connection. Like the Jews all around the world, like we're all connected. It's one big happy family. I think that's part of what keeps us going. That's part of the hope. It's part of the like energy or life force in all of us is this connection. So we're two moms, we're similar age kids. And after we, talked about food, we talked about what we each do. She told me all about her music career, which is very interesting because she plays Italian Jewish music. Like, she's like preserving music and the history of the compositions. But we sat and we talked as moms and what's it like to be moms to young adults, and she goes across the globe from me, but we share so much in common and really enjoyed a lovely afternoon together in her home. So
let me ask
I just left with a lot of hope and inspiration and good feeling because everybody was so warm and welcoming and generous in Jewish communities in many different cities in southern Italy. I hope people get out of it. First of all, I went back to the picture of me cooking in Silvestro's kitchen. Okay. So Silvestro and I are team teaching this class. Silvestro Silvestori has run this cooking school for 22 years. He's an amazing host. He is an encyclopedia of Puglia. The food especially, but anything you want to know about the region. He's a trained sommelier. He in olive oil and wine. So we're going to have olive oil tastings, wine tastings. It's always a good time at his house because after you have this fun cooking all this food, you sit in the dining room and talk and sit and drink wine for as late as you want. Silvestro never tells you to leave. You can leave when you're ready. It can be all night. So it's kind of like it feels like an endless party. But see, part of what I love about Italy is that warmth and that hospitality and that life happens around the table. That feels so familiar to me. That feels so Jewish, but it's also so Italian. So I've been trying to figure out why. Is this like similarities in culture? Is this because Jews have actually been in the region for a long time and it's like some cross-pollination? I know my family lived in the modern day Ukraine 100 years ago and going back generations. Where were they before? Because most of the people who ended up in that region traveled from somewhere else. So where was my family in Italy way back and I can't trace it? It sure feels like it because this area and this region like speak to my soul, call my name, like no other place I've been. I've seen Jewish life in France and Spain and other places, and it's all, worthwhile and interesting to see, but nothing like speaks to my heart like Italy. So I want people to have all those feelings. I want to see some other things in the region, including the other museum. I have a town that I love called Otranto. In their cathedral is the largest mosaic floor in all of Europe. And in the top left corner is a tree of life and the names of all the characters or many of the character names from the Torah. So, there's been, cross-pollination of cultures in this region for a long time. The area has been occupied by Turks, by Moors. For a long time, Italy lived, going back hundreds or millennia, lived with many cultures, living peacefully together. Most of what did not work out for the Jews in Italy had to do with new rulers or certain regimes in the church who started making unfavorable decisions towards the Jews. The people as a whole largely, got along and coexisted peacefully. I highly recommend people stay on longer and especially travel in the region. There are so many super cool hilltop towns that are like walled, they're like on top of the hill. They're all white colored and they're all fortressed or whatever, from the time with invaders, and they're charming towns. There's also many seaside towns, and the water color is turquoise. It's breathtaking, very unspoiled. Like, this is an uncrowded, unspoiled, more natural area. It's not like going to Venice, which I happen to love. But I guess I want people to feel that there's hope, that if we band together and don't fractionalize, and don't go look for the differences, but look for the commonalities, we're stronger together. There's more hope together. The connection is so enlivening, and there's a lot of joy. It's sort of a mitzvah, or a part of being Jewish, that you live every minute you have to the maximum. And if this trip sounds interesting to you, come and have an incredible time with me, living life to the maximum in Italy, cooking, eating, and learning more about Jewish history.
This is Dana Schrager, and I'm co-teaching a cooking class, The Jewish Cooking of Southern Italy. We'll be at the Awaiting Table Cooking School with Silvestro Silvestori in Lecce, Italy. Each day we'll cook Jewish dishes from a different southern Italian region, including Rome and Lazio, Puglia, Sicily, Calabria, and Naples and Campania. During our time together, we'll shop for ingredients like locals, learn about olive oil and wine, spend time by the sea, and field trip to Jewish museums and nearby ancient towns. So come walk in the footsteps of Jews who have lived in southern Italy in the past and learn about the current Jewish communities. I'd love for you to join us.